welcome back to another recipe. I know I haven't uploaded for a while. I've just finished my exams, so hopefully my uploading schedule should improve. And today I'm just making lovely meat and onion pies to go with some vegetables. So yeah, we're just going to start by slicing some onions. Slice them nice and thin so that they're not too chunky, because I really want the meat to stand out in the pie today. I want to taste the onion, but I don't want it to be overwhelming. So I'm just going to slice these nice and thin, and then I'm going to dice them up. So a few painful minutes later, we have some sliced and diced onions. I've sliced it quite as fine as I can, really. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I don't need to use a whole onion because these are huge, and these are going to go into a pot with some olive oil. So we're going to get some olive oil into a pot and turn the heat on. And now we're going to add the onions. I'm going to put the heat on a medium sort of heat, and we're going to saute them until they're translucent. I'm going to add a little salt to the onions and then just give it a good mix. And put a heat on just to help these soften a little faster. Over here I have some cubes of beef. I'd already washed this ahead of time, cut it ahead of time. Whilst the onions saute, you could prepare the beef now, but I asked the butcher to cut them into cubes, so around this big, so I just cut them a little smaller to these sort of pieces. They don't have to be perfect, but I want it to be, big enough where you notice the meat's there. I want these meat pies to just be all about the meat. So this is already prepared. Give the onions an occasional stir to make sure they cook evenly. And then just pop that lid back on. I'm also going to crush 4 cloves of garlic, and these are going to go in with the onions when they've sautéed. So I'll just crush them up anyhow you want. So my onions have turned translucent, and I'm going to add the cloves of garlic and give that a couple of minutes just to fry into the onions. Mix the garlic in and be sure not to burn them. When the garlic smells really fragrant and it's had a minute or two to cook in, you can add your beef. I'm using around 1 kilogram or 2 pounds of beef. I'm just going to scatter them in. I'm not too fussed about overcrowding the pan today because I'm going to be kind of slow cooking. I've turned the heat up to a high heat. I'm just going to mix the beef in with the onions and give it a few moments to just brown slightly. If you prefer more onions, you can add more. I don't want it too oniony, and I know my meat is going to shrink, so I've only gone with half an onion. And now we're just going to add some salt and pepper. Plenty of salt, make sure it's well seasoned. And some coarse black pepper. We're going to mix that again. I've let my meat brown slightly. Because my pan is so crowded, it is starting to steam a little. But for this particular recipe, I'm not too bothered about that because I want the meat pies to be juicy inside. So now that they've had a chance to brown a little, I'm going to turn the heat to low and pop a lid on. Remember, towards the end of cooking time, taste it for seasoning, make sure the salt, pepper, garlic and stuff is right. Give the pot a stir from time to time, and I'm going to cook this until all the meat inside is really tender. I just decided I'm also going to add a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. This sauce, just a few splashes. I feel like this with meat goes really well. So a few generous splashes and mix it in again and let it cook. So the beef has finished cooking. The liquid has reduced right down. You can check the beef with a fork to make sure it's tender. Give it a final taste for seasoning. I'm leaving just a little of the liquid still in there because I've got a few more things to add and I don't want it to be too dry. The onions from the beef, with the beef reduced a little too much for my liking, so I'm just going to saute a few more onions here and add it to the pot. So the onions have finished sauteing. I just let them get a bit of a golden colour on there. And I've added some frozen peas. I'm just going to let that heat through in here. And then this is going to be added to the meat. So my peas and onions have finished sauteing. I'm going to add it to the pot with the meat. And we're going to mix that in. I've also got here a little bit of boiling water. I'm going to add a couple of teaspoons of these gravy granules. This is an optional step. I just like the sort of richness it gives to the meat, and just mix all together. So now I'm going to add this gravy, and I'm going to turn the heat back on just to let this thicken, and then I'm going to let it cool completely before I add it to the pastry later. So the gravy and the liquid has thickened, and now I'm going to leave this to cool entirely before I put it in the puff pastry. I add that gravy just to keep the meat moist when it cooks, and this is ready. Assembling my puff pastry meat pies. I've got the meat pie here. I've just divided it in the middle because I'm just going to do it in 2 sets of 3 pies. I've got some egg yolk here with a bit of salt and water, just to brush on top at the end, and some water to help seal the edges. So I'm going to start by just getting a scoop of this filling. Try to keep it as neat as possible. And fill that in there. So I've laid the meat pie in. It might not look so appetising, but I'm going to cut along here, and then these are going to be closed up. So I've divided my pastry into 3 different sections, and all I'm going to do now is get the water. I'm going to run it along the edges of the pastry. This just helps me seal the edges of the pastry a little easier when I fold it. And I'm going to do this around the edge of each one. So I've brushed the edges with a little water, and now I'm going to fold them over. So I've folded these over. You might have to do a little bit of stretching here and there. I had to do it with these. It's something I would rather not do, but you've got to do what you got to do to make it fit. And then we're going to try to line the edges up and crimp them with a fork. So I've finished making the pies. I don't really know what happened to this one. It kind of just fell apart. But and now I'm going to brush the tops with egg yolk. So these are ready to go into the oven. This pastry kind of fell apart. I think it might have been the type of pastry I was using. We tried to reduce fat, and it just stuck to the paper, and it was just a nightmare to get off. So here's a tip. When you unroll your ready roll puff pastry, unroll it straight onto foil, so that in case it does stick, you don't have to worry about taking it off the paper and onto the foil. So these are going to go in the oven for around 20 to 30 minutes until they're golden. The pastry has finished baking. You take it out when it's all golden and brown. Give it a few minutes just to rest, like 5-10 minutes. So if you enjoyed the content, please do leave a like, subscribe, click that notification bell, and I'll hopefully be uploading more soon. Thank you for watching.